I need to get deeper into the bigger pockets thing. I don't know. It just seems like something that I'll just go down a rabbit hole and just be in there for hours and hours and hours.
Well, my kid's probably going to be like doing some seller finance deals in a couple of years because that's all we listen to. That's all we have on. She like literally, we have Bigger Pockets on. We have like Pace More Beyond. We have all these real estate creative financing options.
That's so funny. She has like her ROI calculator.
Oh yeah, she's gonna. I mean, the house that we bought, we closed escrow on one the day after she was born, and I call that Victoria's house. Like when she's 18, she can have that one, and she can rent it. She can live in it. She can sell it and go to college if she wants. Like,
cool.
That's her thing.
I like it.
Technology, diversity, wine, the redwoods, and everything in between. Welcome to the Northern California Bay Area, and one show takes you inside the real estate that makes it all happen. This is By the Bay.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Dan and Chetta back here with another episode of By the Bay. I have an awesome guest today who is a longtime friend and referral partner, Chelsie Runnings from Better Homes and Gardens. I had to look that up to make sure there's S's in the proper places. And Chelsie is a fantastic agent that's based out of Sonoma, but is kind of playing all over the Northern California, I guess. We'll get into that bit of a story. But so Chelsie, introduce yourself and tell us kind of how you're playing in real estate right now.
Hey guys, I'm Chelsie Runnings, as Dan just said. I've been an agent for almost 7 years now, and I've been an investor for 2 years. I jumped in right in 2020. So I've been dabbling with investing and working with clients. I specialize in probate sales. So
that's really cool because your background, you worked for a probate attorney.
Yeah, for like 10 years.
Right. And then you kind of saw a need for a real estate expert to help with that kind of transition for those families that are having probate sales, right? And the agents. So tell us a bit about that. That's an interesting little niche.
So probate, it's the legal process, so you don't want to do anything wrong with courts and stuff. But I was noticing that these realtors, and no offense to any long-term realtors, but I'd see these realtors come in and we'd say, do you know how to do a probate sale? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I've been a realtor for 30 years. And it comes out they've only done like 1 or 2 like actual probate sales.
Right.
And we had a couple cases that actually got like super screwed up because they like didn't really know. So for example, this one had a court confirmation because there was fighting among the family, and so the judge had to basically sign off on the sale. And this realtor like didn't understand like what this meant.
Okay.
And so she represented the sellers, said, yeah, we're good to go, let's go. Told the buyer's agent, we're good to go, we're gonna do it. So the buyer's agent, they like removed contingencies, and then they put in their 30-day notice to vacate their apartment.
Okay, yeah.
And
all normal stuff
all
in a
normal
transaction.
Stuff.
Right.
But this court confirmation happened because there was a fight, and like 90 days later, we still didn't have a court hearing. And so these buyers were like in the middle of, they were like essentially couch hopping with their family because they had given notice to their apartment, not knowing that they might not get this house after all. Right.
It wasn't that the seller wasn't actually able to convey the property to the new buyer. So to walk us through, I don't want to get too into the weeds in it, but now that you brought it up, I'm interested for the viewer. What is probate and why do people wind up in it?
So probate is when someone passes away and they don't have a trust, and a lot of people get confused. They think, oh, well, I have a will. A will does not protect you from probate. You need an actual living trust. So when you pass away and you have assets like a house, you have to, your family or your representative of your estate then has to petition the court to handle your estate. And when handling the estate, you have to basically pay off all debts, and then whatever's left over gets divvied up between all the beneficiaries and the heirs.
Okay. And if you don't have a will and you don't specify who the beneficiaries and heirs are, then it can become very complicated.
You want a trust.
Right.
A will still goes through probate.
A trust.
Yeah.
That's what
so
I meant.
A lot of people get confused. They think, oh, I have a will, but you still technically go through the probate process. It's a little more streamlined.
Right. Because a will is basically saying, I am the owner of the property. I am no longer alive. And when I die, these are the people who I want to have my stuff. And you can like specify.
Yeah.
But it still has to go through a process to actually convey that property.
So the only way to like really avoid it is to have a trust. And one of the attorneys I worked with explained it amazingly. She would say you would have a trust and then you would have a will, because the will was basically like your catch-all, like your basket. So anything you forgot to put in the trust, the will says anything that I forgot goes into the trust, basically. So kind of just saved you. But you definitely want to trust if you own real estate.
All right, so PSA, if you own real estate, go ahead and get yourself a trust and a will. Contact your local trust attorney, and they'll give you some great legal advice, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So when you worked in that capacity, it was an attorney who was helping families unwind the estate, the property of a deceased property owner, right?
Yeah.
So you saw this niche where it's like, oh, hey, look, these realtors actually don't know how to handle these transactions.
Yeah.
This is something that I can provide as a service really to these attorneys who really want to have an easier transaction and have a better experience for their clients. Is that kind of on?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I had like the attorneys would refer clients to me, and then I've had realtors reach out to me and say, hey, I don't really like probate's not my thing. Can I just refer these clients to you? And so it's like worked out both ways, because then I help the attorneys out, and then I help realtors who are like, look, I don't really know it. It's not my thing. Can you take care of my clients for me?
And you're like, absolutely, come on down.
Like,
I know this stuff
yeah.
inside and out, and let me help you skip a lot of the steps.
Yeah. And most of the time, probates are pretty simple, but
when they're not, they can be very complicated.
Very complicated and very expensive. Probates are very, very expensive.
Okay. So that's kind of how you got into the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so 7 years ago, you started, and tell us kind of, where are you transacting on real estate right now?
So I worked, I like split it. So I did paralegal work for the first about 4.5 years. I was still working as a paralegal and doing real estate on the side. And then in 2020, I was like, I'm just going to make the jump and quit my paralegal job and went full-time into real estate. And then every year since then, I've had my best year. Some people could say it's just because of the real estate market, but my business is made up from referrals.
Right.
I don't spend money on marketing. I do all referrals from attorneys, realtors, CPAs, and then a big, we have our favorite clients. I have a lot of clients who either do repeat business with me or they refer friends and family to me.
Yeah,
so that's been my business.
So those are like the pillars of business, right? So okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so geographically, you are Sonoma. So your office is in Sonoma.
My office is Sonoma, so I do mostly Sonoma County.
Okay.
I do a little bit of Lake County because I grew up there and I have friends and family there, so I still do some for them. And then when I invest more north towards Shasta and Tehama counties.
Why did you make that decision?
A couple reasons. The price point. It's a lot easier to get cash flow in those price points, but I also researched growth. I don't want to invest where there's no growth. And so I saw businesses first going there. There was a Chick-fil-A, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods.
There's a Whole Foods at Reading?
There's a Whole Foods. A Sprouts.
Shocking.
I know. Sprouts, there's like these tea cafes now. And so I was watching these big businesses move in, and they have a lot of research and development, far more than I have. So they were obviously seeing something.
So you're looking at the signals of what other larger businesses are doing, that are making business decisions to open, to plant brick and mortar stores and places, and saying, well, if they're making this decision, then there's something happening
There's something happening there. And then population growth. I've watched the growth up there because I lived there when I was younger and I have family there. And so I was always visiting. And I just watched the population grow year after year. Like there's no decline. It's just steadily going, which is crazy because it's so freaking hot there and miserable during the summers. But the price point you can't beat. There's jobs there. People have great jobs there, especially like my family's all in the union. And then it's becoming a destination zone. So you have Lake Shasta, Whiskey Town, Mount Shasta, Mount Lassen, Bernie Falls. So if you try to get a hotel there during the summertime or spring or fall, like it's pretty hard to get a room because it's becoming this big outdoor destination zone.
Right. It's like the big city adjacent to these outdoor adventure places.
And it's affordable.
Right.
And when I take people there to visit, they're like, wow, if I was doing this somewhere else, taking my whole family to do something would be so expensive.
Right.
But doing it there, it's much more affordable. And so there's just a lot of growth happening. And I saw the development plans and the money and the budgets they were doing for like the redevelopment of downtown. And so that's just all stuff I'm looking for to make an investment decision.
That's cool. So there's a bunch of different ways to invest in real estate, right? So without giving away your secret sauce, can you tell us, like, how did you come to this decision to go from, hourly employee working for a law firm to going to be a commission-based, real estate salesperson, realtor, and then eventually to investor, and looking at cash flow and investments and different type of creative financing, and kind of walk us through that kind of journey for you?
Yeah. So I grew up thinking I was going to be a prosecutor. Like I was dead set lawyer, probably because I watched Matlock with my grandparents all the time. And I was like, Matlock's so cool. I'm going to be just like him. Even though he was like a defense attorney and I wanted to be a prosecutor. But
it's okay. Technicalities.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So I was like dead set on going to law school, went and became a paralegal instead, did the law school thing kind of, like took the LSATs, applied, was going to go. And then I had an attorney pull me aside and be like, look, like you would be a great attorney. And he took me in the kitchen and he said, look how many attorneys have brown paper bag lunches. He's like, it is insanely expensive to get into this career with like law school education and student loans. And he's like, you'd be great. I'll give you a letter of recommendation, but just, think about
Probably
it.
really good advice, right?
Really great advice. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I actually really liked real estate when I was in high school, but I graduated in 2008. And so everybody was like, don't do it. Don't do that. It's horrible. You'll never make a living.
Right. The market was just dissolving and
I had
everyone was losing. People's parents were losing their houses.
Everybody. And they were
awful.
like, no, real estate, absolutely not.
Stay away.
And so then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I don't love working for the weekend. Like, people work for the weekend, but you're working for one day really. Like, right, you get off on Friday, maybe Saturday you do something fun, and then Sunday you kind of clean your house, grocery shop, food prep, and then you rest. And then it's back to the grind again. And I don't love that. And so I was like, real estate kind of gives me this opportunity I can work as hard as I want and make as much money as I want. And I loved it, and I've been doing that, and I still love it, but I was still grinding. Like, you don't stop. You work night, mornings, weekends,
Whenever
holidays.
clients need to talk,
you just don't stop. And so I was like, well, what else can we do? And so Jose, my fiance, he's like, thinks outside of the box. And he was like, we need passive income. We need passive income, and we need something that just grows with us. And that's real estate. Like, right? Real estate's tried and true. It's the best way to make long-term wealth.
For sure. Anecdotally, most of the very wealthy people that I know have at least a considerable amount of their wealth is in real estate, whether it be
90%.
commercial or residential real estate. I know lots of other people who've made their millions in technology and other things, but the most people that I know that are very well to do have benefited from real estate. And sometimes that's operating a business and owning the real estate that is in the business. And the business is just a catalyst to own the real estate. That's where they really make the money, is on the real estate.
Yeah.
So it is very interesting. So keep going. So you decided, you and Jose are like, hey, if we're going to do this, we don't really want to be grinding all day, every day. Let's look for some passive income. So how did you learn about, how to do this?
Well, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I think everyone who
Classic.
gets into it
Got to start
gets
there.
it from there. And then Bigger Pockets. I jumped onto the Bigger Pockets website, created an account, started asking questions.
So tell us a little bit about what Bigger Pockets is. If people aren't familiar, what is Bigger Pockets and what's that all about?
It's an investors podcast YouTube channel, and then they have a website, blog, forum, I guess. And just investors collaborate. They share success stories. They help you out. They analyze deals with you. And so I just started networking on there.
So it's a social place where people can gather,
basically,
and share their expertise and ideas and say, hey, here's a property I'm looking at, and this is what my deal structure is going to look like.
Yeah.
What do you think?
And they're like all over, like they're like across the country,
right,
everywhere. But you can say, hey, I'm in Sonoma. Does anybody have experience getting started in Sonoma?
Got it.
And talk to people like that.
Cool.
And I've gotten a lot of
so you
clients
get like
from
hyper
there
local,
too.
right? Well, that's interesting. We'll get back to that one. So, but Bigger Pockets. So that's a website and a podcast, you said. So you can go there and you can listen to experts talking about how they put deals together, how they're playing in the real estate game, and what their kind of objectives are, and how they're achieving cash flow or appreciation or whatever they're.
Yeah. It makes you think bigger. Like, it really, when you hear some stories, I watch Bigger Pockets all the time, and I hear these people. This lady is making $12,000 a month. I just watched this one yesterday. She buys houses that people normally wouldn't know what to do with, big houses, and they're too big for the average family, but they're not really multifamily, so what can we do? She buys them and she turns them into assisted living facilities.
Oh.
And she makes $12,000 a month net on multiple, 5 of these.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not great at math, but that's $60,000 a month.
A month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And passively, because she's probably not the one who's operating the facility.
She's not operating it. She
Right.
just has the building, and she lets other people operate and run it.
That's a really interesting. That's there's a list somewhere, I'm sure, of all the different things that you can do with real estate and how, that's really interesting. So how are you and Jose, or independently or together, how are you playing in the real estate game right now?
So right now the goal was to get into a duplex and like house hack. But
so what's house hacking?
House hacking is where you buy a house. It could be a house and you rent out the extra bedrooms and you live in one and basically have your roommates pay your mortgage, or you buy a duplex, triplex, whatever, and you live in one and you rent the other ones out and have those monthly incomes from the other ones pay down your...
And why would you do that as opposed to just buying it as an investment property?
Well, you get to live for free, basically, and then you have somebody paying down your mortgage. So you live in one side of it, you rent the other side. Hopefully the other side rents for what your overall mortgage is, and then you're just living and collecting all your money and saving. It's a great way to get started.
There's some programs that allow you like lower down payment if you're going to be your primary residence.
And it could, like a multi-unit could be your primary residence.
Primary residence.
So if you get in for 3%, you don't put a ton of money out. You live in one, you rent the other one out.
Right. I've seen that a lot in this area with people buying houses with ADUs. And they actually wind up living in the ADU and then renting out the house. Yeah. Which is the more valuable monthly asset. And then they wind up with a very small monthly house payment, if any, at all.
Because like what I think you're living, like your house is like 70% of most people's income or something like that. Like most people's income goes to housing costs.
Oh yeah, the vast majority of people's income goes to either housing or housing related. You could when we qualify somebody, it's just the principal and interest, taxes, insurance, HOA, mortgage insurance, all that stuff. But that doesn't take into account, the cable bill, the water bill, the PG&E, or all the other utilities and the things that go into actually living in the house. And so if we add up all those things, like as a part of your net income, it's a big number that people spend. Yeah. So if you can house hack and have somebody else or a combination of people, actually paying the mortgage for you, you have the benefit of that where they're paying down the balance of your loan, plus you live somewhere for free, quote unquote. You're still taking on the risk because if they move out, you still have to make the payment, right?
But you're hopefully qualified on that whole payment.
Right. You can make the payment. You're finding a creative way not to. Okay. So the original plan was for you guys to buy a duplex and house hack it and rent out one. And how did that pan out?
So that didn't work because I was looking Easter weekend of 2020 up where my family lives in Redding, and I saw this house come on the market for $185,000 or $190,000, and I was like, it's Easter, people probably aren't doing anything. It just hit the market. 2020, it was a month after everything happened, and so real estate kind of had a little pause. It was before everything kind of went crazy, right?
Well, the markets there's no liquidity in the market. So financing was actually quite expensive for a few minutes there. Yeah. And there's a lot of uncertainty about what does this actually mean? How long is this going to last? And that uncertainty makes people pause.
Yeah. It was it was before everything took off. So it was right when there was a huge pause. Like people were like, I'm going to take my house off the market. Right. Like, I don't know what to do. And so I was like, let's just put an offer in. It was in a gated community. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was a nice house on about a 1/4 acre. And so I was like, let's do it. Like, let's just pull the trigger. And so I did it. And we locked it in at 187. And
nice. So you offered less than what they were on the market for. Yeah. Got it $3,000 less.
$3,000 less.
Awesome.
Got an interest rate of like 3.5%.
Sounds about right at that time period.
Yeah. Good. Locked it in. It didn't need anything. It needed some like paint and stuff.
But all houses like need carpet and paint and a little bit of fixing. And
it was, for the most part, it was completely move-in ready, but it was an older person's home. So it was kind of like a little outdated. Sure. So what we did is we went to the local paint recycle center and we just looked at whatever paints they had available and we just snagged paints for free.
So these are paints that people turn in because it's bad on the environment if you just
so it was mostly like home builders who have put up the home, painted, and then they went and donated the rest of the paint because they didn't need it anymore.
And you pick it up for free.
Pick it up for free.
But it is what it is. It's the quantity is
well, we got trending colors. We got like the grayish colors and painted the house. So I painted the house for free, the interior and the exterior. And then the only thing we paid for was we put a new sink faucet in the kitchen. and we put some lights in because there was no lights. And so we paid like, I don't know, $100 or something, and got some recessed lights, and my dad knew how to do it. And so he taught me how to do lights. And so we were up there wiring away and putting lights in, and that was it.
And so how's that investment? So is that still your primary residence, or have you
rented it out?
You rented it out.
Yep.
So you lived in it?
Lived in it for about a year, refinanced it, pulled some money out. So we bought it for $187. A year later, we refinanced. It appraised at $265.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about appreciation.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
in a year.
That's the goal, is
Right.
appreciating assets that cash flow.
Right.
That's my goal. So 265, pulled out about $15,000 and put that as a down payment onto another house and rented that one out for $1,700. Brought my interest rate down to 3.2 from 3.5, and my mortgage is like $1,044, and I rent it for $17.
That's amazing. So it is totally possible with not a huge amount. I didn't hear at any point you said, I wrote a check for $500,000 and that's how I bought this asset. Like it's been small dollar amounts.
Yeah. And I did it as a
wisely.
primary. So I did, I think I put 7% down.
Okay.
I could have done 3, but I don't know why. It didn't make a huge difference in my monthly payment to do the 3 to 7, but I was like, let's just do it.
And so, obviously, for it to be your primary residence, you have to live in it for at least a year, right? You sign a piece of paper that says, I'm going to live in here for at least a year. But that doesn't mean that you have to live there forever.
Exactly.
And you can use primary residence financing with the advantage of the lower interest rates and programs that allow less dollars down, right? Less percent down. And then live in it, occupy it for a year at least.
Yeah.
And then make sure you document that.
Don't do mortgage fraud.
No, mortgage fraud. We don't do that.
No.
We were not. Yes. But if you live in it for a year, then you can buy another house and rent out the other one. And that's kind of the train that you're on, is kind of buy something, live in it.
Well, that was the train. But now that interest rates have gone up, I have to pivot a bit, right?
Okay.
Because I don't want to mess with my interest rates right now. My interest rates on my houses that I have now are in the 3s,
Right.
3.2, 3.4%. I don't want to go refinance and get a 6% interest rate because that kills my cash flow.
Right.
So now I'm doing the seller financing. I'm pitching seller financing, or I'm trying to assume anyone's loans.
Okay, so let's tie a bow on the house hacking thing. Is there any other? So, and I want to go on to this next phase of your real estate empire. So, house hacking started out. That makes a lot of sense to me, where you're having other people occupy,
And I should say I kind of did house hacking without owning the property. We used to rent rooms out in the houses that we rented to offset our rental cost, to save money to put for a new house to buy.
Right. So if you're willing to live with roommates and have people in your physical space, and that's the kind of sacrifice that you're making.
Make the sacrifice for the long-term goal.
Right. Good advice.
Yeah.
Okay. So house hacking, kind of, you ended there. And now with interest rates being where they are, you're approaching real estate as an investor in a different way. So tell us about that, starting with the kind of creative financing things that you're looking at.
So if you're a retail buyer, like, the interest rates don't matter, right? Because you're going to live in the house. You're not looking for cash flow. I'm looking for cash flow. Like, when you are investing in real estate, you're looking for one of 3 things. You're looking for cash flow, appreciation, or tax help, right? So I want appreciation and I want cash flow right now. So I need a low interest rate to get that cash flow. So what I'm doing is I'm going to sellers who own their homes free and clear. They typically have a lot of equity. But right now, with the market shifting, they're maybe not getting the price they wanted. And if I'm seeing price drop, and you've been on the market for a while, I'm going to you and I'm saying, hey, I saw you had the home on the market 4 months ago at $380, and now you're on the market for $320. I'll pay you that $380 that you originally wanted, but I want it on seller financing terms.
Okay, so walk us through what that looks like and the practical application of how this works.
So basically, they're going to be the bank. I'm not going to go to you, even though
That's
I love
okay.
you.
Yeah.
I'll come to you in a couple of years.
Sure.
But they're going to be my bank. And they're going to say, okay, you make me monthly payments. So I'll give them a down payment. I'm not going to do 20%, because if I was going to do 20%, I'd go to a bank.
Sure.
I'm going to do 3 to 5%, 15, 20,000, and then I'm paying them interest-only payments, which works out great for them because I'm not paying down the principal at all, right? I'm just giving them interest-only payments, and I don't have a set number in mind. I I need it to cash flow for me, and I need a certain amount of cash flow every month. So I'll take insurance and taxes after I'll figure out what it rents for, and then I'll deduct insurance and taxes from that, and then I'll deduct like a war chest or like vacancy and stuff.
Right. Contingency funds.
A little contingency fund. And then whatever I have left, that's my cash flow. And then I'll say, okay, if I have, $1,000 cash flow, like I'll split the difference with you. I'll pay you $500 a month, and I'll keep $500 a month. And that's your interest only payment.
So the seller would do that because they get the sale price that they want. Mm-hmm. And eventually you'll wind up refinancing this property at some point down the road.
Yeah. And so
making them whole on their
they're
sale.
going to get their wholesale, but in the meantime, they're going to get more money than they would have anyways, right? Because if they're getting $500 a month, just interest, if I pay them $500 a month for 4 years,
and then they get their $380. In that scenario.
So they're actually getting more money in the end.
Right. As long as they can afford to carry you for that time. If they need the cash because they're buying another house or they need it for living expenses,
that's always,
that sort of thing.
I want to know why they're selling. If
right.
they need the money for a new purchase, that's not going to work, right? If they just are a tired landlord and they don't want to be a landlord anymore, then I'll upgrade you to a bank. Why not? Everyone wants to be the bank, right?
Why be the landlord when you could be the bank?
Exactly.
That's really cool. So that's created. So you learned that on Bigger Pockets. So you're like, you didn't know this going in. You're learning this through other people's experiences and putting your own twist on it. Is that how that?
Yeah, Bigger Pockets, and then just from Bigger Pockets, I started learning about other investors. I know this one investor, Pace Morby, and he has like something like 60 million in real estate, all from seller financing and creative financing.
But so in the seller financing gig, you actually own the property. They convey it to you.
Yeah, they convey it to you.
Right. So your name is on the title, and they carry a note.
It's literally the same as a transaction.
It's a full sale.
It's a full sale. That's just they're the bank.
Right. So it's different than like what I hear, like people like rent to own, right?
Yeah.
It's not that.
Like the deed's over to me essentially.
Right.
And then they have a first like lien position on the property. So if I default, they can come.
What happens if the property drops in value to $100,000?
So we put an agreement that says in 4 years, I'll refinance you. I'll refinance and I'll pay you off. But if the property doesn't appraise at this certain rate, I automatically get another 4 years.
Okay.
And then, in 8 years, we hope that it'll appraise.
But the seller is taking on some sort of risk as the bank.
They are, yeah.
Right.
But they're taking on risk as a landlord too.
Sure. Right. Because if they hold, that makes sense to me.
Like a landlord or a tenant, they don't care. They can destroy your property. I mean, look at what happened to a lot of landlords in 2020 and 2021. Tenants stopped paying. They destroyed properties. There was no recourse.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So when my wife and I were buying our first house in 2010, I think that's right. I think so. We looked at houses for a long, long time. We probably started looking in 2009, looking all over the place. Is that right? I can't remember the dates exactly. Doesn't matter. She'll listen to this and correct me, I'm sure, which is totally fine. She knows the dates. And I'm like, it's April something. Anyhow, we were touring houses all over the place, and these places were destroyed because people were getting foreclosed on. Mm-hmm. They didn't understand all the documents and what they were going to pay and the escalations in their payments and all these adjustables and all this other stuff. And they were ripping copper out of the walls. Like we were walking through houses and going, what happened here? And they had a free for all. And they're like, hey, well, if you're going to foreclose on this and you're going to take it back, I'm going to make it as painful as possible. Yeah. And then, investors were buying those and fixing them up and flipping them, and they probably did okay on them in the long run.
Yeah. And that's kind of what investors are doing right now is like these people who like they just went through that a bit again with COVID and all the, eviction moratoriums.
Yeah.
These landlords got trashed, and they don't either have the energy or the funds to fix it up. So now they're
tell the viewers. So during COVID, the state of California said you cannot evict people. Right? It was a public health crisis, and we're not going to displace people. And
it doesn't matter if they're not paying.
Doesn't matter if they're not paying. They don't have to pay.
Yeah.
And that went on for a long, long time.
I think in some places it's
still going.
Yeah.
So like you can't evict people, whether they're paying on your house. But if you have a mortgage, you still have to pay. If you're the landlord, right? You still have to pay. And so I think there's a lot of weary landlords out there that are going, I'm not doing this again. Get me out of here.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Right. But if I'm essentially buying your house on seller financing, why would I pay you $500 a month? if I'm just going to be like, I don't want to pay you right now, like, I don't want to default on that because I don't want to lose out on however much interest I just paid you.
Sure.
Right.
And the upside of, hopefully you're cash flowing and all the other stuff. Like, you're going to keep that engine going.
Like, I'm not going to sell or finance a house, or I'm not going to buy a house at all if I don't have cash flow in it.
Right.
Because that'd just be a bad investment on my part.
That's not what you're in the game for.
I'm not in that tax bracket yet where I just need property on
trying
my
to
books.
take losses and play the tax game.
I'm not there yet.
Right. One day,
but not yet.
So how else are you playing in the real estate world right now? So you're still selling real estate as a realtor.
Still selling it.
Right.
I'm not
Kind of,
giving that up.
Bucket number one. And then you're doing the seller financing. Is there anything else that you're doing?
I'm exploring what wholesaling is. So I haven't actually wholesaled anything, but wholesaling is essentially when somebody locks up a property and then they sell that contract to an investor.
Okay, break it down for me again.
Okay,
so I own a property.
You own a property, and usually it's distressed. So it's a house that it's going to be very hard for you to sell on the market, and you're going to need an investor to do it.
Okay.
So a wholesaler will come in and say, I'll buy this house for $200,000. And then they'll take that property, and while it's under contract, they'll take it to an investor, like a fix and flipper, and they'll say, hey, I got this contract. Do you want to buy it for $210,000? And so then that investor says, yeah, I could buy this thing for $210,000, put $50,000 in it, and sell it for $350,000. And so when you sell that contract, the wholesaler makes $10,000
just for passing the paper,
just
for identifying the deal.
Mm-hmm. And basically, the wholesaler is like negotiating and getting these deals for these investors, these flippers, because you're basically like an acquisitions person, right?
Okay.
You're just acquiring contracts and taking it to investors who maybe don't have the time to dedicate, but they don't to dedicate to getting a contract, but they don't have the, I don't want to say luxury, but they don't really have the time to like wait for their next property to come, right? When they finish a property, they need that next one.
Right. They have a crew, they got to keep busy, and so they don't have time to.
Yeah. So like wholesalers basically kind of keep the funnel going for them.
Okay.
And so it's interesting to kind of see like what these investors, like it's interesting to see how wholesalers are negotiating contracts. And then it's even more interesting to see what fix and flippers are needing, because everyone says the market's trending down, right? So I'm seeing what these investors are needing to make a profit for themselves to keep in business, basically.
Interesting. So let me make sure I say that back to you. So property owner has a property that's maybe not currently for sale, right? But it's identified somehow by the wholesaler.
Yeah, you can do, and they do on sale, on market properties.
Okay.
But that's not like the most common way. They look for like distressed properties. They also look at records to see if there's like tax liens, if people aren't paying property taxes or something like that.
The public record that if you haven't paid your property taxes, that people can look that up.
It's usually like a homeowner that's in some sort of financial distress.
Okay.
And maybe the home is in some like needing a repair also.
And the idea of maybe selling that house is overwhelming, because how am I supposed to do that? They've got to fix the roof. We got to do other stuff. And so it says, hey, whatever, it doesn't really matter what this house is worth. I'm willing to pay you $300,000. We'll get in contract for $300,000 right now. Right.
A lot of those signs you see that like we buy for cash.
Okay.
That's kind of what it is. They're like guerrilla marketing you. Got it.
So, but then you get the wholesaler then gets into contract with the homeowner, and they have a certain amount of time, maybe 60 days to close on this transaction or something like that.
Yeah. It's usually within like the inspection contingency period. So like 17 days.
20 days. And within that 20-day period, they take that contract and they flip it to an investor who's looking for their next project to flip and fix and sell.
And the investor basically pays a little bit more, almost like a finder's fee.
Right. That's really it. So, okay. So I can see, as you have a network of the fix and flippers, you kind of know what their appetites are, kind of where geographically they like to be, and then that's how a wholesaler would find those deals. Yeah.
So you want to know like what their buy box is. So you want to know they look for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, no older than 1960. And then you also want to know what like their ARV projections are. Like if I'm buying it for 180, like I have to be able to sell it for 250 or more to make a spread on it. And so you have to like really narrow in on that stuff, and you have to really get good at comping properties to be successful.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Because if that makes sense that's going to be a small world. And if you kind of get known for like knowing how to locate these deals and put them together, that people will start calling you and saying, I got,
And it could be beneficial for realtors to work with wholesalers. Because if you have a client that's got a distressed property and it's going to be hard for them to sell and they need to sell it, go reach out to a wholesaler, and say, hey, I got this property. Do you got any buyers?
Right. They probably do.
And they probably do.
Right.
And who cares if they, if they're going to pay your client what your client wants, who cares if they flip that contract at the end of the day?
Sure. Yeah. And then winds up improving the overall housing inventory because there's someone who's going to come and flip the house and fix it and make it habitable. Maybe it's not occupied currently because of the condition of it.
Yeah,
These
exactly.
sorts of things happen. Okay. So looking out into the horizon, what's the next big thing for you?
I mean, I'm going to keep growing my single family or my multifamily, like duplexes. And long term, I want to roll that into self-storage units or something that's even more passive. I want to be mostly hands-off. That's my goal. And I thought, right now my goal is to have enough real estate rental properties that I can cash flow enough property to live off of. I still want to sell real estate because I truly do love selling real estate, but I want to make enough income off of my rentals that I can just live off of it.
Right.
And my goal was to have that by 40, but now that I'm a mom, I want it by 35. I'm 32 right now, so I got 3 years to acquire more property that has enough cash flow that I can live off of. Now, I'm not going to live like this extravagant life where I'm out on yachts and like spending absorbent amounts of money, but I want to spend my time with my baby, and I don't want to miss a moment with her. And I've spent the last 10 months at home with her every single day. And as she gets older and goes to school and sports and stuff, I don't want to miss a single thing.
Yeah.
And
I
so
love that.
my goal is I want enough passive income.
You and I are completely aligned on that because it's like, that's the most important thing in the entire world to me is being home every day to watch my kids grow.
Yeah. I didn't know I wanted to be a mom. Like that wasn't in my life goals. Like I wanted to be successful. Being a mom wasn't, I wasn't that girl that I want to be mom and be married and do all of this, but I'm a mom now and I don't want to miss a minute.
How old is she now?
10 months.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That happened really fast.
Really fast. Everyone's asking me about her first birthday and I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah. Atlas is just passed in December and we're like, we did a family party.
I don't want to think about it. It's too sad.
Yeah, it is for sure. So it sounds like maybe a real strong niche for you is in terms of people who are buying real estate are people who are interested in these types of acquisitions, people who want to learn about house hacking and learn about investing and that sort of thing. Is that how your clients are? Are you a lot of clients that are also like bigger pockets people?
Yeah. So I've gotten a lot of vacation rental clients from bigger pockets because they know Sonoma County,
Right.
So I helped some clients in the last 2 years secure some of the final permits for like Russian River area. Hopefully their homes are doing okay right now.
Yeah. Right now. So there's a huge storm happening. I'm really glad we have power today.
Yeah.
I think there's like 3 inches of rain overnight. It's pretty crazy.
That the Russian River is going to rise like a foot an hour or something like that.
Yes. All the downstream stuff. Yeah. As all the tributaries and stuff go into it. And that river basin is huge. And it, anyway, our parking lot back here is flooded and there are streets, closed on the way into the office today. So, if you're out there, stay safe. But yeah, so vacation property up in the Russian River area.
A lot of that.
And these are investors that are coming from the Bay Area that are buying up there.
Bay Area, like San Jose, San Francisco. These are high income earners, and they need to put their money somewhere, and they want to make more income as well, more passive income. So why not roll it into real estate? It's a little harder now in Sonoma County to do the vacation rentals.
Right.
But I've talked to them about some of my investment opportunities, and I have some buyers that ask me what I'm doing and what my success rate is on it, which is really cool because now I get to kind of help guide them even more. Like I get to guide them beyond home buying and actually guide them into making investments that are like really good for them.
Cool. So if there's listeners out there who are interested in like creative financing and house hacking and like doing things maybe not the super traditional way of 20% down, live in a single family, do the whole thing, maybe kind of looking at real estate from a different perspective, they'd be a good fit for you as clients.
Come to me. I just pitched 3 deals over the weekend for seller finance. So let's see. I have I'm doing on market deals. So I'm dealing with an agent too, which is exciting because a lot of agents don't really they heard of seller financing, but maybe they've never really done it or they don't see the benefits of it for their clients. And then a lot of them are like, oh, how am I going to get paid? Like, we're gonna make sure you get paid. We're gonna
Right.
make sure your client's taken care of. So I'm doing on
Right, 'cause
market,
this-
off market.
The sale is still happening.
It's still happening. You're gonna get paid.
Right.
So, and if you want to, if it works for your client and you want to represent me as the buyer's agent too, I'm fine with that. I just want to make a deal that works for all of us.
Cool.
So if you're looking to do real estate and you don't want to go through a regular bank, I got you. If you got to sell a home through probate, I got you too.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure that your contact information, everything is in the show notes so people know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
And you want to tell people like where your socials are, how to get how they can reach out to you.
Oh man, I think Instagram, I'm just Chelsie Runnings. Just Chelsie Runnings with an S. And Facebook, same thing. I'm a little on TikTok, but I think I'm just Chelsie Running Real Estate.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you coming in.
for
It's great to
having
see you. We'll get an update from you on how your projects and creative financing stuff are going. I think it's really cool, and I'm really really impressed that like you just kind of jumped right in and started doing it and like took the risk. I think that a lot of people will read a book or have an idea and then they don't like just jump in and execute it. And I think it's really cool is watching your progression, evolution as you've gone through this to just like oh, what's the worst that can happen? Let's just go and make it happen.
It has to do with the person by my side. I mean, he has a bigger vision than I had, and he was like, let's do this. And so, when I have hard days or I feel like, I'm hitting my head against the wall because maybe this agent's not working with me or the seller doesn't want to work with me or something's not happening, he's right there. He's helping me look at the end game. So he's definitely got to take a lot of credit for it.
Good job, Jose.
Yeah.
Like that guy.
Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Well, thanks for coming on the show. It was really great to see you.
Thank you. This was fun.
Stay up to date with Bay Area real estate. Hit subscribe now if you haven't already. Did you enjoy this episode? We love reviews in the Apple Podcasts app. We'll read yours on the show. Hear more shows about Northern California now